Pamalogy is the logical philosophy of perfection. Pamalogy is short for polyastronomically maximized awesomeology. It takes about 20 minutes for any adequate summary introduction to Pamalogy. Do you have your thinking cap on? Here we go. Do you believe in perfection? What is perfection? How about this definition? Perfection is that which includes every conceivable good thing in itself and also excludes all bad things possible, even the slightest shade of anything bad. Most people are stumped. They understand the definition of perfection. They even expect God to be perfect. But they don't believe in perfection because they see bad things. So, they don't believe in a perfect God. They see suffering, war, corruption, and evil, death, disease, injustice, famine, all that. How can these things be if there is perfection or a perfect God? Pamalogy offers some possible answers to that question. And the answer isn't just free will shifting blame away from God to people, or the inability of lowly mankind to know a perfect God or what perfection is. There are other explanations for how there can be both perfection and bad stuff. So what are the other explanations? Well, for instance, maybe bad things are not real. Maybe they only appear to be real in order to create the environment that certain good things need in order to be real. As an example, there can't be healing if there's no injury. There can't be forgiveness if there's no sin to forgive. There can't be a resurrection if there's not first death. If perfection is every possible good thing, how can good things like forgiveness and healing and the beauty of deliverance from death exist without imperfection? But perfection also requires that these bad things don't exist. How's that possible? Well, don't we see and experience them? We think we do, but there are many possible explanations, actually. And of course, none of them would console a parent of a dying child. You've got to prepare for that type of thing. You don't philosophize somebody who's now in mourning and not ready for it. Pamalogy provides answers. For instance, these evils could just be illusions. They could be dreams, or even deliberate simulations. Another explanation could be that we belong to a universe that's not the one that we think we are presently looking at and living in. Multiple universes explain more than you may realize. There are actually a lot of reasons to think that there may be many universes, and possibly many dimensions in many universes. And if each universe has its own independent space and time relationships, what you temporarily perceive as evil, providing the means for good, may actually not belong to the universe to which you really belong. What if you're much more than you appear to be? You may be the light of pure goodness, born of perfection, ever existing, worth repeating, traveling through various universes, including the one that you're seeing now. And that universe may not actually exist for an infinite number of years into your real future, despite the fact that your goodness is shining through it. I say that what is good in the universe that you see may simply be the shared goodness that shines from another universe, a solely good universe whose goodness has the power to penetrate into other universes, even an infinite number of years before they exist. Because that would be good. And if there's perfection, there's always more goodness, always more and better realities. Awesome realities to the max. Ask yourself what you really are. Are we just bodies with minds advanced by evolution to the point of perception? Or perhaps, is perception something else? Something that uses bodies, that have neurological systems that are advanced enough to host consciousness, to host what we really are. Are you, as a perceiver, actually an entity that shares conscious moments and experiences in many bodies, in all times and places where such bodies exist? In that picture, time is just a construct of the mind. We're not who we seem to be in any given moment. We're much more. Consciousness is panchronic, but it is separated by individual bodies in space and time, in particular universes and dimensions. Let me ask it this way. Are perceivers like you and me perceiving time only because bodies evolve and have their existence, living and dying in particular points of space and of time? Do we perceive time only because bodies with their minds can see only one thing at a time and have one thought at a time? Maybe you don't believe this about yourself, I understand. Maybe you don't believe your consciousness can extend beyond your body. But what about the consciousness of perfection itself? What does perfection itself know? If perfection exists, perfection knows all possibility and makes every good possibility a reality. Among many other things, that includes knowing all things that we know, experiencing all things that we experience, minus any evil. And the logic of perfection points to other theories as well, even better ones. Perfection knows and understands all good things fully, and, lacking no good thing, it continually shares the consciousness of every individual perceiver. Time doesn't have to progress slowly for that to happen. Perfection lacks none of this whole understanding in shared perception from all eternity. There isn't, wasn't, and never will be a time in which all perception has not taken place. History may well be linear for the space-time continua of the many universes required for the fulfillment of all possible good things, but not for the perfection which supplies all that is good to it. Perfection is thus something that, in the case of humans and animals anyway, uses bodies with neurological systems advanced enough to host both the individual perceiver's consciousness and that of perfection as a whole. Perfection shares conscious moments and experiences in many bodies in all times and places where such bodies exist. There you have it. Perfection perceives all things simultaneously and perceives as individual perception both, enjoying multiple consciousnesses. What is less than perfection may perceive many things at once or just one thing, the way you and I do in what seems like today and now and here. The life of perfection is varied and abundant, with a great variety of operating laws for a great variety of types of universes and dimensions and entities. And how can one know this? Well, because it would be good. Therefore it is. When you delve into Pamalogy, you will explore many such possibilities, and these include explanations of why there seems to be imperfection. And additionally, you'll discover that the existence of perfection is logical and even imperative. It can be deduced. The logic goes something like this. Imagine there was nothing. Not in this universe or any other. No matter, no energy, no fields, no particles, no dark matter, literally nothing. What would there be? Nothingness? That's incorrect. What there still would be is all possibility. And in all possibility exists the possibility of perfection. In all possibility exists all possible truth, all possible knowledge, all means, all comparisons, and the conception of all that could possibly be good. The purely abstract conception of all possibility is perceived of itself and by itself in a way of understanding that is intrinsic to itself as pure possibility. Having both the knowledge of all that could be good and what would be best if it happened, possibility has within itself the moral responsibility to turn the purely abstract thought of perfection by perfection in the conception of all possibility into reality. To put it sort of biblically, the logic of God wills by its own goodness to become flesh. It turns itself into the only truth worth existing that was in the form of a pure spirit of abstraction into reality. Now we know that even empty space is not entirely empty. It's a mesh of fluid fields. And it's through these fluid fields that many cosmologists have supposed that matter and energy might appear out of nothing. They theorize, perhaps correctly, that a Big Bang took place some 13.7 billion years ago, and that the cause was a random difference between an overall amount of matter and antimatter not precisely annihilating one another. So study Stephen Hawking for details on that. This is not a cosmology course, this is philosophy. The theory is that the universe is the remainder. But whether Hawking was right or not, all possibility still exists, with or without absolute nothingness. It doesn't matter how many universes there are, or how many dimensions, or what types of laws govern any of them. All possibility exists alongside all that is, was, and ever shall be, and it never changes. Nothing can be added to it. That's why perfection never changes. It begins as pure abstraction that understands its moral obligation to realize what is best, no matter how many universes and dimensions that takes. The quantum physicists blab on about multiverse theory as well, and string theories that might explain all the laws of one universe that they call ours. The Pamologist's proof of perfection comes from the simple observation that all possibility includes the possibility of perfection knowing itself and knowing how to realize all that could be good, and doing so without the need of a starting force or energy other than itself. The quantum physicists' inclination to believe in a multiverse based on what they observe in particles that act like waves finds its proof, at least on a theoretical level, in the Pamologist logic. There's therefore a harmony between Pamology and cosmological science. So, you need to know that. Now, we can look at the proof of perfection and of a multiverse theory later on and summarize it here. The words polyastronomical refer to multiple dimensions and universes. The words maximized osmology refer to perfection. If there was only one universe, how would every possible good thing take place in it? If you say that given enough time it could all happen, then how does the one good that follows another good in a sequence benefiting the second good by its order, and the opposite, where the one good precedes another good benefiting the latter by its order and sequence, also occur? Well, that's a problem. But when there's a linear timeline in a single universe, both sets of good results, they just can't occur. And not unless history repeats itself from a prior time with some variation, like in a circle or a time loop. A universe with a time loop that has variations would be something very similar to a multiverse, wouldn't it? We still wind up with two or more worlds, right? Two or more worlds rather than one individual history. It's polyastronomical either way. So that's Pamology. But there's more. It follows that we're taking part in this beautiful thing called perfection, and we can willfully choose good things over bad things. Pamology therefore speaks of what is good and what would not be good to the extent that such things can be determined. It seeks out answers to what we should choose individually and as communities to make them more awesome, for a more awesome world, for as many life forms as possible, and not just the human ones. So what is awesome? And what is most awesome in your opinion? Is this a subjective question? Or is there anything quantifiable and objective that we could identify? Well, both. We can say objectively that if the purpose of life is the maximization of awesomeness, that more life is better. Yet, we might also objectively say that if there's too much life, there might be an imbalance. We might need to have an ecosystem of some sort. We might run out of resources like food or air. An earth without air would certainly end a lot of consciousness life here now. And that would not be good, would it? We can objectively say that. So planning for the future of human population growth might be very useful, especially now that technology is allowing us to live longer. Shall we let the randomness of competitive forces build the world to the clouds? Or should we anticipate regulation that will allow us to plan ahead and work together? Can we manage costs? Or are we about to suffer from poverty, famine, a health crisis, and war? Can we and should we convert to a vegetarian diet so that we can be merciful and compassionate towards farm animals? Pamalogy doesn't answer every question, but it offers guiding principles. The golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is certainly sensible. Whatever does the most good for the most people and other conscious creatures. These are ideas that Pamalogists would embrace as moral guidelines, but the scope is limited to logic. Pamalogy doesn't delve into dogma or tradition. It's a philosophical system, not a religion. So there you have it. Now that you know what Pamalogy is, I hope you'll see how useful it can be. It's useful for encouraging people who are upset about life. It's useful as a moral system and a guide. And there's much more to consider that I'll touch on in other videos when time allows. And how, for instance, does Pamalogy compare to other philosophical systems such as Stoicism, Cynicism, Epicureanism, Aristotelianism, Platonism, Marxism, Nihilism, and so on? How well does it harmonize with various world religions? Is it like Hinduism or Buddhism? Or is it more like Christianity or Islam? Is it unique? What does it have to say about sexual morality? Does it advocate socialism, capitalism, communism? Is it conservative or progressive? If you want to know, stick around. Thanks for dropping by. I look forward to chatting with you again soon.